نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا والسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا والنساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد، قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إن من الناس مفاتيح للخير مغاليق للشر وإن من الناس مفاتيح للشر مغاليق للخير. فطوبى لمن جعل الله مفاتيح الخير على يديه وويل لمن جعل الله مفاتيح الشر على يديه. Brothers and sisters in Islam, our beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in a hadith that has been narrated by that illustrious companion and disciple of our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Anas ibn Malik, and has been collected by Al-Imam Ibn Majah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him and all the muhaddithin and ulama of Islam. In this hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has told us that there are some people who are mafatih lil khair, that they are keys that open the doors of good. And these people, they close the doors to evil. And there are some people who open the doors of evil and they close the doors to good. And so our Prophet then said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, so tuba to those in whose hands Allah places the keys to good, and woe to those in whose hands Allah places the keys to evil. In the few moments that we have together, brothers and sisters, we like to look at, briefly, concisely and quickly, 4 things from this hadith. The first thing we like to look at are those people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed to be keys that open to good, closing the doors to evil. The second thing we like to look at are those people, and we seek refuge in Allah from being from them, those people who are keys that open the doors to evil and they close the doors to good. Then, wabillahi tawfiq, we like to look at what does this word tuba, which the Prophet has promised those people who are keys to good and closers of the doors of evil. And we like to look at lastly, the woe to those people who are keys to opening evil and closers of good. So the Prophet told us in this hadith that there are some people who are openers. They open the doors of good while closing the doors to evil. And there are many examples of this. But we'd like to look at just two examples. From those people who open the doors to good and close the doors to evil are those people who the Prophet told us in this hadith. Again, narrated by Anas radiallahu anhu and collected by Al-Imam al-Tirmidhi. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, إِنَّ الدَّالَ عَلَى الْخَيْرِ كَفَعَلِهِ. The Prophet said that the person who leads others to good or shows others good is like the person who does it. And so we see from this hadith that the person who shows other people good, and the ulama of Islam have said that khair, goodness, is all those things of good and benefits to the human. Benefit in terms of their deen, first and foremost, and benefit in terms of their dunya. So those people who show others good, and the greatest of good, al-khair, that the person can show and lead others to, is at-tawheed. That the person singles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out in his worship, that he alone should be worshipped, in his lordship, that he is the creator and the sustainer of everything in the universe. He brought everything into existence. And he is the one subhanahu wa ta'ala who gives us life and gives us death. And also that we single Allah out in his names and his attributes that can be found in the Quran and the Sunnah. This is from the greatest of good. And there are other examples of good, such as being kind to your neighbors, irrespective of their religion. Such as being kind to your brother, kind to your sister, giving charity. These are all examples of good. The other example, and this is an important example, of those people who open the doors to good while closing the doors to evil, are those people who feed other people. The Prophet ﷺ told us in a hadith that has been narrated by Abdullah ibn Amr and collected by Al-Imam Bukhari, that the Prophet ﷺ said, someone came to the Prophet ﷺ, a man, and asked him, ﷺ, Ayu Islam khair? Whose Islam is the best? The Prophet ﷺ replied, تطعم الطعام وتقرأ السلام على من عرفت وعلى من لم تعرف. The Prophet said, the person who feeds others food and gives the salam to those people who he knows and those people he doesn't know. Now this hadith itself is a khutbah, because this speaks to our situation as Muslims. When we see each other in the street, do we give salams to each other? We only salam those people whom we know. You can see that somebody is a Muslim, mashallah. But because unfortunately of our ignorance or our arrogance, we walk past each other, missing the blessings of saying Assalamu alaikum to each other and wa alaikum assalam. But the important thing of this hadith is the person who gives food, feeds other people. The ulama, when explaining this hadith, they talk of two categories of people who feed other people. The first category of person is the person who invites other people to his house and he feeds them, invites them to participate in food. The other person, and the most important for our khutbah, is the person who feeds people who are needy. Now there'll be some of us who say, where is needy? Where are the needy in our country? We're a country, mashallah, where there are unemployment benefits. If you have nowhere to live, there are housing benefits. But brothers and sisters, the statistics contradict what we think. In the year 2013, 7.8% of the population of the UK were considered to be in persistent poverty. This, brothers and sisters, is 4.6 million people. 4.6 million people in our country. This country, the 10th richest country in the world. 10th richest country in the world, with 4.6 million people in poverty. In the United States of America, the first, #1, richest, wealthiest country in the world, 20 million people in poverty. Can you imagine 20 million people, brothers and sisters? 20 million people in the UK. There are currently, and this is not my statistic, this is from Dr. Bernardo's, a respected charity for years that has been helping children. There are currently 3.7 million children living in poverty in the UK. 3.7 million, brothers and sisters. So those people have the audacious idea that there's no poverty in this country. Here are the statistics laid in front of you. There are poor people. And so from the best of us, brothers and sisters, is that person who tries to help and feed the needy. And there are many ways we can help the needy, especially now, as we are moving from autumn to winter, where the weather becomes cold and unbearable. There are many people who we can see with our eyes living in poverty, as well as the many people who are invisible. Poverty, largely in our country, is invisible. You don't see people. In Arabic, they use the word mastur, hidden. Because many people are proud. They don't want to go begging and asking people for help. So we can help by contributing to food banks. As a masjid, everybody brings a tin of food, and we can then give it to a food bank. As individuals, when we do our shopping on the weekend, we can allocate £5, £10, £20, what we can afford to buy tinned, non-perishable food to give it to the food bank. From those people, this hadith spoke about, brothers and sisters, are those people who close the doors of good while opening the doors of evil. And there are many examples of this, but we'd like to look at 2 examples, wabillahi tawfiq. The first of those are those people who are Muslims, who take the lives of others unjustly. The Prophet ﷺ told us in a hadith that has been narrated by Abu Musa al-Ash'ari and collected by Al-Imam Muslim, that the Prophet ﷺ was asked, Ayu Islam afdal, whose Islam is the most excellent and virtuous? The Prophet ﷺ said, Man salima al-muslimina min lisani wa yadih, that the person whose Islam is the best and most virtuous is the one whom the Muslims, salima, are safe, have safety from 2 things, brothers and sisters. The 2 things that the Muslims are safe from are yadeh, his hands, and lisaneh, his tongue. And so this is from the best of Muslims. The person whom the other Muslims are safe from, his tongue. And what do we know about the tongue, brothers and sisters? There is no greater weapon of mass destruction than the tongue. It is with the tongue you destroy the relationship between a father and son, a mother and daughter. It is with the tongue you can destroy the relationship between a husband and wife. A relationship no nuclear bomb can destroy. Think about it. Can a nuclear weapon destroy the relationship between a husband and wife? No. It just eliminates people. But with this thing, the tongue can destroy a whole family, split a family into two. Not just a husband and a wife, but two sides of a family because of the tongue. You can have a friend for decades, for years, but because of somebody's tongue, the poison arrow of the tongue splits them in two. And what about the other characteristic? That the Muslims are safe from his hand. That this person does not commit acts of aggression against the Muslims. But is this something just unique to us as Muslims? Because we have today those people who say they are Muslims and they are from the best of Muslims, and they believe wrongly and falsely that they leave Muslims and kill non-Muslims. The Prophet told us in a hadith, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَلَا مَنْ قَتَلَ نَفْسًا مُعَاهَدًا لَهُ ذِمَّةُ اللَّهِ وَذِمَّةُ الرَّسُولِهِ فَقَدْ أَخْفَرَ بِذِمَّةِ اللَّهِ فَلَا يَرْحَى رَائِحَةُ الْجَنَّةِ وَإِنْ رِيحُهَا لَا يُوجَدْ مِنْ مَسِيرَةِ السَّبْعِينَ خَرِيفًا. The Prophet said to that person who believes that it's okay to take the life of non-Muslims and to kill them, and this is from Islam, the Prophet answered you by saying that indeed whoever kills a mu'ahid, and the ulama explain the mu'ahid is that non-Muslim who has a treaty or a covenant with the Muslims. Now look at our situation in the United Kingdom. Those who come by sea or by land, by air into this country, you come with a visa. You have a covenant with the government, a covenant of peace and safety for you, and peace and safety from yourself with them. Those of you who are born here, whether you are a subject or a citizen, that you have a covenant with your government of safety. The Prophet said to you that whoever kills a mu'ahid that has a covenant from Allah and a covenant from His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he has violated the covenant with Allah. If he kills a mu'ahid that has a covenant from Allah and a covenant from His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he has violated the covenant with Allah and the covenant of His Messenger. So he shall not smell the fragrance of paradise, even though its fragrance can be smelled from the distance of 70 autumns. Now let's put these two ahadith in perspective. Let's put these two ahadith in perspective. That you have amongst us Muslims who believe in blowing themselves up and killing other people, Muslim or not Muslims. They see Muslim life like making an omelette. Like making an omelette. In that to make an omelette you have to crack some eggs. It's just a matter of course. This is how they see our lives. They see your life as collateral damage, inconsequential. And these same Muslims, groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, who say they represent Islam. And let's look at ISIS as an example. Right now, today as we speak, our brothers, Sunni, Muslim, Kurds, are being killed who? By who? By the same organization which claims to defend Islam and Sunni Muslims. By the same ISIS which claims to be Sunni and it defends Sunni Islam, is killing and enslaving our Kurdish brothers and sisters right now as we speak, and nobody's saying anything about it. And we see from these ahadith, it's not permissible. La yujuz, in the Sharia of Allah, the law and the legislation of Allah, to harm Muslims or those non-Muslims whom you have a covenant with. And so those brothers and sisters who believe that it is jihad to come to this country to kill people, indeed it is not jihad fi sabilillah. It is jihad fi sabila shaitan. This is not jihad of Allah, but rather it's jihad of the shaitan, the devil, and those people who follow his way. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على ذاك النبي الكريم نبينا وحبيبنا محمد ابن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. In the first part of the khutbah, brothers and sisters, we looked at, by the way of example, those people who are good do good, close the doors to evil, and those people, wa'iyadu billah, who do evil and close the doors to good. And then we said that there are two things we like to look at. What is tuba, and what is the recompense, the reward for those people who close the doors to good while opening the doors to evil. In a hadith that has been narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, radiyallahu anhu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked by a man, what is tuba? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, شجرة في الجنة مسيرتها 100 عام ثياب أهل الجنة تخرج من أكمامها. The Prophet answered sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a tree in paradise whose width is 100 years, and the clothes of the people of paradise are taken from its bark. And so we see, as the ulama have explained, that tuba for the person who does good is the glad tidings, insha'Allah, of Jannah, of paradise, for those people who do good. And this has to be kept in our minds, brothers and sisters, at all times. Because we live in a time in which, unfortunately, the person who wants to be good, who wants to do righteousness, sees things, or things are done to him or her that makes you want to be somebody who is not righteous. We live in a time, brothers and sisters, in which government policy is conspiracy theory. What do I mean by conspiracy theorist policy? The idea of the non-violent extremist, because you want to wear thobe, because you might have a beard, you practice Islam. People say, here is an example of non-violent extremism, meaning that after a while you will become an extremist. It's conspiracy theory. How does somebody come from A to Z just because you may have a beard, or just because you start to pray at work or fast? How do you come from A all the way to become an extremist? How? Muslims have been for 1,400 years praying, fasting, giving zakah, and never become extremists. How all of a sudden, in the last decade, you now label devout Muslims as being extremists? This is conspiracy theory in the minds of somebody who doesn't think. And so young Muslims especially are under the pressure of this type of ideology. Also we see that Muslims are subject to aggression, being attacked. Can you imagine somebody who is 80 years of age, coming close to death? The time you are to make peace with your family, peace with your world, and more importantly, peace with your Lord. But an 80-year-old man can find the strength to try to push a Muslim woman under a train. And this is one of many examples we have seen over the weeks. And it is interesting. Last time I was with you, brothers and sisters, I spoke about racism. And subsequent to that, we saw the onslaught of racism on the Muslim community. And when we speak about racism, people say we have a victim complex. So you are to be beaten and not to complain about being beaten. You are to be hit and not to complain about being hit. And if you have significant number of incidents happening to you, you are supposed to be silent. Otherwise, you have a victim complex. This is the same thing they said to African Americans when they speak about slavery. 400 years of chattel slavery, the worst barbaric conditions we have ever seen. And when it is complained about, people asking, what's your problem? Slavery's over. The same thing. Painting you with a victim complex. It is not a complex. It is speaking about the reality that people are scared to speak about. I want to hide under the carpet. So with these things happening, brothers and sisters, it becomes easy for the Muslim to despair, to feel sad. And some of us, unfortunately, will think of extreme means to alleviate our situation and our condition. But brothers and sisters, we don't need to become extreme, because indeed the help of Allah is always with the believers. And what has Allah promised? You, the person who does good, closes the doors to evil, and is patient. Allah said to you in this hadith, for Tuba, that is paradise, for the person who is patient and perseveres, doesn't transgress the bounds. We are bound by the Kitab and the Sunnah. They are not bound by the Kitab and the Sunnah. We are bound by the Sharia. They are not bound by the Sharia. We are not a reactionary people. We are a people that goes against Allah and His Messenger's plan. We are not a people of evil, but rather we are a people of good. And so we have to always keep this in our minds, brothers and sisters, that Tuba, paradise, are for those people who try to be righteous. And then those people who are wicked, who are evil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told those people, إِنَّ الْمُجْرِمِينَ فِي دَلَالٍ وَالسُّعُرٍ, that indeed the criminals are in error in this life and the hellfire in the next life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the people who close the doors to good in this life, opening the doors to evil, He says to them, إِنَّ الْفُجَّارَ لَفِي جَهِيمٍ, indeed the wicked, oppressive, sinners, they will be in the hellfire. And we always keep this in our minds, brothers and sisters, that those people who do wicked and evil, you may escape in this dunya. You may find somebody who will give you refuge. You may find in this dunya that the crimes you have committed are forgotten and swept under the carpet. But Allah is watching you. And Yawm al-Qiyamah, you will get your just deserved punishment. And there will be nobody who can hide you. Nowhere for you to escape. And whatever you did, you will get that which you deserve. And we always keep this in our minds, brothers and sisters, that wherever you may run and hide in this dunya, but there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide in the akhirah. ثم اعلموا أن الله سبحانه وتعالى أمركم بأمر بدأ فيه بنفسه فقال جل من قائل إن الله والملائكة يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك محمد البشير النذير والسراج المنير وارض اللهم عن الأربعة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وعن بقية الصحابة والتابعين وتابعي تابعين ومن تبعهم بالإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعنا معهم بعفوك وكرمك وإحسانك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين ودمر أعداء الدين ودمر أعداء الدين ودمر أعداء الدين وانصر عبادك الموحدين يا عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون واذكروا الله العظيم الجليل يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم وللذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون وأقيموا الصلاة